Good afternoon. I would like to welcome each one of you to today's Akron Rotary Club meeting here on Tuesday, August the 3rd. And so let me officially open us with the ringing of the bell. Welcome. At this time, I'd like to invite David Hall to lead us in our invocation.
Thanks, Steve. I just had a quick poem here I wanted to read, some wisdom from the popular writer Anonymous. The value of a smile. It costs nothing but creates much. It enriches those who receive it without impoverishing those who give. It happens in a flash, but the memory of it sometimes lasts forever. It cannot be begged, borrowed, or stolen, but it is no good to anyone unless it is given away. So if in your busy life you run across someone too weary to smile, leave him one of yours. No one needs a smile as much as he who has none to give. So with that, if you'd bow your heads. Dear Lord, we're thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's challenges. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
Thank you, David. And I appreciate your flexibility on finding out at the last moment that you would be doing the invocation, but thank you. And so true about smiles and just how that when we do smile, it's almost hard for someone else to mirror back anything but a smile. So thank you very, very much appreciated. Now, if you would join me, I'd like to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So now, next up is our four-way test. And Cheryl, if you can put that up. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So, I'd like to make a few comments because we're still in the interim of dealing with coming up and out of COVID. And if you've been watching any of the news and seeing what's taking place in Florida, Florida is really in the midst of like a firestorm with a recent resurgence of tremendous amount of hospitalizations and people being infected with COVID, even to the point I think it was over 10,000 a day. Fortunately, here in Ohio, we're not anywhere near that, but we still want to be very, very wise. And so we've had our risk committee, which has been head up by John Reyes and Chaz Billington and Dr. Rob, who have done an outstanding job. And there were some other members involved with that as well. But they've been exceptionally due diligent and very, very thorough in letting us know what would be the wise approach in coming back together and gathering once again. And so we're looking to meet in person, and we're looking to meet next Tuesday at the Bounce Innovation Hub, and there will be communication coming out today at the end of the day. I have one more meeting with the leadership at the Bounce Innovation Hub, and yet we're going to be looking today to see how many people would be willing to and will be coming out for our first gathering in person. So if you would, and Cheryl, maybe you can make note of this. I know that on the chat that there is an opportunity to raise your hand to say whether or not you would be coming in person. So I see Doug just put his up. And you can count me as well. I'm not going to worry about that since I'm speaking, but we're going to, for the first number of meetings, we don't know how many exactly, we're going to be offering a hybrid because we're still in the midst of this transition. And the hybrid will consist of meeting in person as well as having a Zoom meeting accompanying that until we decide and until we know more thoroughly where we are and what the climate looks like out there. Yeah, if you can, let us know if you're willing to be able to come in person by raising your hand, and we'll be meeting at the Bounce Innovation Hub later today. You will be receiving an email as it pertains to our coming back together. And our risk committee did a very diligent job of putting together a waiver that will be accompanying the email that we're asking everyone to sign. And this is to make sure that we're taking care of one another. We're taking care of all of the legal responsibilities so that you know everybody is covered. So if you would kindly look for your email later today and sign the waiver, and then you can send that waiver back to Cheryl, that would be great. So
I have a question, Steve.
yes, Miss Sandy.
Are you asking in general if we're willing to come in person, or do you already have like a date in mind when that would start? Sorry if I missed that somehow.
Yeah, you may have just come in and you may have missed that I announced that that would be next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I did miss that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And there will be communication forthcoming as it pertains to that. So
Steve, there is a message in the chat from Katerina you may want to view also.
yes, and we are aware of that. We just had a meeting prior to coming on for our general meeting, and we were aware of what you shared there, Katerina, about the health commissioner saying that that we'll be at that risk. And so what we had discussed, and Chaz was in on that meeting, is that everyone would be required in coming to wear a mask. And that last week, Cheryl and Brian Casarco had gone out to the Bounce Innovation Hub and met with our contact over there, Rose. And Rose had mentioned that in the setting up for our meetings, that we would be sitting no more than 4 to a table and everybody being socially distanced. And I don't know if there's anything else you might want to add to that, Ms. Cheryl, at this time.
Just that I'm going to actually, when we send that communication out, there will also be a link. We'd like you to RSVP, even though you've raised your hand today, because not everybody is on this meeting, obviously. So we would like you to let us know if you're coming. You don't have to pay in advance, but you will pay at the door. It will be a buffet lunch, and coffee and tea and water will be served accordingly. And it's $13. Is that correct, Steve? I don't want to misquote you. Okay. But again, we do ask, even though you've raised your hand, if you will respond to that communication accordingly.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve, if I may, just as a formality, does the mask policy have to be a board decision?
That I don't know. You know, per our conversation with Chaz, since it was introduced previously within the last hour, I don't know. I mean, maybe someone else could weigh in on that if we need to have a special board meeting to do that.
Yeah, just my opinion, I think we have to have some sort of formal decision there, because I appreciate Chad's commentary, and I think there was one other member of the board that shared her own personal beliefs, but I don't think that's anything that's been decided yet, at least from my standpoint.
Okay. Well, then if we need to have an emergency board meeting, we'll set that up even before I would send out an email then.
One other point. Do you want me to try to reach out to the 2 folks who are scheduled for induction next week and see if they can delay? Do we want, is that I guess taking on a little too much with a new meeting? Or maybe I'll give them the option and just say, hey, we're ramping up, so things might be a little bit, you know, scattered next week. Do we want to delay? Because, you know, the induction is kind of a nice ceremonial function, and I don't want them to get short shrift. You know what I'm saying?
It may be wisdom to do that because per our recent conversation with Katie Miller and Cheryl, we had made the decision, I'll make the announcement now, that next week, we're gonna have a club assembly. And the reason we're gonna take advantage of a club assembly is obviously, we're in the midst of an incredible transition. And we're walking through something that we've never seen before, because this is the first pandemic in all of our lifetimes. And thankfully, we've been well represented with tremendous legal representation. And that risk committee has done an above effort in pulling everything together. So I think we're covered quite well there. And per the introduction of what Thane shared there, we'll look to have some type of an emergency board meeting before I would send anything out. Okay, because this all just came up, as you know, this all came up and within the last hour.
And I want to just offer personal thanks to Chaz and John Reyes and the other folks on the risk committee, because I know they've done a lot of heavy lifting and I respect their expertise and I think they've done a great job. So thanks to those folks.
Thank you, guys. And also too, I wanted to thank Dr. Rob for leading last week's meeting. My family was on a very much needed vacation and we had a fabulous time in Maine. And prior to that, we were able to meet in Connecticut with family and to have a celebration of life service for my father-in-law, who actually passed away last fall. But because of the COVID restrictions, we did not have an ability to pull together a meeting until this summer. And it was absolutely wonderful in New Haven, Connecticut, and then onward to Maine. And so thank you, Dr. Rob, and it's great to be back. So without any further ado, I'd like to have David Hall as our greeter share if we have any visitors with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So I believe we do have two. Let me find them here again. We have Olivia, is it Pillon, who's soon to be inducted. So welcome, Olivia. And there we go. Candace Harmon, I believe, is a guest as well. So welcome to you, Candace.
Candace is
Anything
also,
either you'd like to say?
Candace is also going to be inducted shortly.
Oh, okay. Very good.
All right. Thank you, David. Do we happen to have any Rotary ambassadors? Let's see if I can- Miss Cheryl.
I went to the zone meeting last week called Silver Linings. And what it was based on was finding silver linings in the midst of the pandemic for our clubs. And everybody walked away with some great ideas, many of which we're already implementing, just being more inclusive and trying to do, as you're planning the hybrid meetings and so forth, and making sure everybody remains engaged to the best of our abilities. So it was really good. We had several people from our district, but it was there were over 100 people present. It was nice.
Oh, thank you. So Miss Julie, did you have any meetings with all of your busy happenings?
Almost every day. No, I'm joking. We had a great meeting. I think it was in the newsletter for the district. And if you haven't seen the newsletter for the district, just browse it for a moment or two. It's got some really great information, some great articles about Akron. And we had a nice meeting out at the Crystal Lake. I guess it's a park or something in Silver Lake, and kicking off the Rotary Youth Exchange program this year and getting the kids registered. So if you know anyone who wants to travel, obviously it's not going to be this semester, but it will be for next year. Let them know about this great program. I learned a lot. I didn't know everything that was involved in that. So a lot of hardworking people on that committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else as far as a Rotary ambassador?
Steve?
Scanning to see.
Steve?
Dr. Rob, there you are.
I was a guest of the Rotary camp. I wasn't there as a Rotarian. I was there as a Chile Open sponsor. But I got to see fellow Rotarians, Julie Brandel, who brought a big crowd along, and it was really exciting to see the kids. I think Laura was there as well. No, Laura was not. Laura, were you there? No. Anyhow, sorry, but Jack and Vivian were there, and I got to see the camp in action with the cook doing the entertainment for the team. It was really fun to see it, and hopefully everybody would left there with a better perspective as to what we started with.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to pass it over to our own Connor Jarvis.
All right. Thank you, Steve. It's been pointed out that my my bout with COVID here is making me sound more masculine. My voice is a little bit deeper, so take that for what you will. But I am sitting here from my home office, and I was devastated when I found out that I had COVID, not just because I was like, you got to be kidding me, I'm fully vaccinated, but I thought the club was going to be meeting in person again for the first time today. So that was the first thing I said to Courtney. He's like, I can't have this. I've got to go to Rotary back in person. So I'm glad I'm not missing the first official meeting back in person, and miss you all, but glad I can be here. So I believe we're kicking it off with this week's Rotary History Minute, which comes to us courtesy of Mr. Jack Herrig, our club's fine and esteemed Rotary historian. This week's minute takes us back to Rotary year 1956 to 1957, where we're going to focus in on Lyle Buckingham, the founder of Buckingham, Doolittle, and Burroughs, who was the Akron Rotary Club's president at the time. So our recent district governor, John Reyes, shared a story about Lyle's rise to fame, which came during the 1930s when there was a labor strike affecting Akron's major rubber companies. Mr. Buckingham was hired to represent the four companies of Firestone, Goodyear, Goodrich, and General Tire, and he creatively found a way to file an injunction which limited the effects of the devastating strike. He subsequently was hired by these same companies to serve in the arena of labor negotiation, for which he served for the next many decades. So thank you, John Reyes, for that story, and a fine institution here in Northeast Ohio with Buckingham's legacy still continuing on today. World events. So what happened in 1956? The Federal Aid Highway Act was signed into law by President Ike Eisenhower for the construction of 41,000 miles of interstate and defense highways. Fidel Castro landed in Cuba at the start of the Cuban Revolution. Rock and roll music began to sweep the world, with Elvis Presley appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show, which I believe he did 3 times in total. And rock and roll entered the US music charts for the first time with Heartbreak Hotel. And also a little additional anecdote that was thrown in here, and Dr. Rob, I know will appreciate this. The Cleveland Browns had their first losing season with the retirement of quarterback Otto Graham. They were coming off of back-to-back championships of 1954 and 1955. Incidentally, the Browns drafted a guy by the name of Jim Brown from Syracuse that year, and he turned out to be a pretty good running back after all, many would say. So that's our Rotary History Minute for today, August 3rd. With that, I'll segue right into what's happening around Akron, which is coming to us courtesy of Laura Smiley. So what's happening around Akron? First and foremost, there is a Rubber Ducks game today, August 3rd. I don't believe it is too late to reach out to Amanda to reserve tickets. I could be wrong, but the benefits or the game is going to support the Akron Rotary Camp, our fine Rotary Camp for children with special needs. Charity begins at home, and the event is sponsored by Voorhees. So I know several of our members and attorneys are representatives of Voorhees. So a great event. I believe we still have time to get out there today. I won't be able to join, but if anyone's looking for some great family fun, game time is at 6:35 p.m. at Canal Park, where the Rubber Ducks are taking on the Altoona Curve. So always a great time there at the Rubber Ducks games. What else is happening around town? Stan Hewitt Hall and Gardens is still having their Ohio Shakespeare Festival, which runs through August 15th. A Midsummer Night's Dream is the theme. $30 general admission, $15 for students. And then running through September 19th, so still active right now, is the Akron Art Museum's Bold Color in the 1980s. The event is free on Friday and Saturday. runs from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., one of the many phenomenal events that takes place at the Akron Art Museum. A few things that have recently happened here, but I'll just make note of them. On Thursday, July 19th was Akron Art Museum's Downtown at Dusk, and this year's series was capped off by the Numbers Band, who performed at 6:30 p.m. in the Bud and Susie Rogers Garden at the Art Museum. For those that were not able to catch that live, you can still watch it online via YouTube. It was live streamed via Facebook, so I'm sure there's a recording out there you can find as well for the Facebook users. And I believe it's on the Akron Art Museum's website as well, too. So that series was capped off. I think the weather held off, and it was a fine evening on Thursday. On the 30th, it was Hard Day's Night, the Beatle tribute band that performed at Lock 3. For those that missed, I know this isn't explicitly Akron, but I looked and it looks like they will be performing again at the Medina County Fair on August 6th and in Kent on August 19th. Maybe Julie Brandel knows a little bit of something about that, but the Hard Day's Night Beatle tribute band, if you missed them on the 30th, you still have an opportunity to see them. And then I wanted to mention the phenomenal Jackson Browne and James Taylor combined concert that was held at Blossom on Saturday. There were some Rotary members there. Don't worry, I was not one of them spreading COVID around unintentionally, but there were several Rotary members there who braved the traffic and the crowd to the appreciation of the two performers. And little fun fact for you guys, James Taylor has now surpassed any other Blossom headliner. He's performed there 25 times over the past 5 decades, and it was a wonderful concert. And then in the spirit of Blossom and outdoor entertainment, on Sunday, August 22nd, the Romantic Brahms are performing, or the performance of the Romantic Brahms is at the Blossom Music Center. We have 20 free tickets, and for interested folks, it's another opportunity for some Rotary Fellowship. Please contact Steve Bowie or Cheryl Warren, but it's being basically presented as an evening, a romantic evening with Brahms's gorgeous Third Symphony, filled with passion and longing. Maybe it's a little interesting. I said Rotary Fellowship with that being the description, but filled with passion and longing. The Third Symphony by Brahms has directly inspired artists today. The third movement was borrowed actually for the 1951 pop song Take My Love, which was recorded and co-written by Frank Sinatra. And it's also a favorite of Carlos Santana, who's used it as inspiration for his song Love of My Life. So with that, guys, that's what's happening around Akron. Back to you, Steve, and thanks for letting me be part of the segment.
Thank you, Connor, and thank you especially for those little announcements about the Cleveland Browns. And we wanted that for Dr. Rob there. Dr. Rob, you may remember at that time too, Pittsburgh had a pretty decent running back by the name of John Henry Johnson. Remember that guy?
Only from the history books.
Only from the history books. Okay. Well, he wasn't half bad, but those were the days. Unfortunately, it's been a while, but those were the days when the Browns owned the Steelers. When Mr. Terry Bradshaw showed up, everything seemed to change and it's pretty much stayed that way. But hopefully, we've turned the corner. So, anyhow. But thank you, Connor. And lastly, I am holding 20 tickets that Laura Smiley and the Summit has given us for Blossom Music Center on Sunday evening, August 22nd. And let me say this, because my family's already been out a few times to Blossom for the orchestra. An amazing evening. And if you're going to go out there now and you're going to purchase a ticket, these babies are about $25 a person. And so what I'd like to hold out is that we would have a group of us, and I know I'm planning on going there with my wife on the 22nd. We have our own tickets, but I would like to be able to have people reach out and say, hey, set aside 2 of these for me or whatever, so that we can have maybe a gathering where we can get there early enough, have a picnic lunch / dinner, bring some wine or other spirits, whatever, and just enjoy one another's fellowship and listen to some beautiful music. So please do take advantage of this, because it's not a small item when you consider $25 tickets being offered to us very generously from the summit. So now, is anybody happy today? All right, let's start with you, Miss Julie.
Well, I'll have to tell you that yesterday we set up Kimberly's classroom in Monclova, Ohio. She was hired as a 3rd and 4th grade intervention specialist. Monclova is out by Perrysburg. So you'll say a little prayer for her. She is away from home now for real and taking on her new adventure. And she'll be, I think she has 9 children with special needs in her caseload, which is a nice, realistic first start. So I'm excited for her and her fresh start out in Northwest Ohio. So say a little prayer for Kimberly.
Bosser.
What's that?
Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I have $5 happy, mostly in honor of Dr. Rob. I was in Pittsburgh over the weekend for a bachelor party and went to the Steelers Fest, and it was a completely uncomfortable situation to be in amongst all that black and gold. But I did think of you, Dr. Rob, and I will do $5 happy in your honor because I endured Steeler Fest.
God bless you, man. God bless you. Cheryl, I saw that you had your hand up. You are mute.
Muted, Cheryl.
Oh, that's so funny. I have $30 happy because today's my 30th wedding anniversary. And
Wow, great.
I am so blessed to have a husband like Steve. I mean, he is my everything, my soulmate. And I'm going to make myself cry. I'm just blessed. 30 years and 18 months of dating. So I love him.
That is absolutely fabulous. Miss Jerry Kiefer.
Okay, I would like to give $30 happy for my mother, sitting right here. She just received last week the Chris Freitag Award for Community Service, the very first one from Friends of Metro Park.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations, Jerry.
So I'm really pleased.
Hey, Jenny, I'm
Proud of
sorry.
my mom, yeah.
Jenny, do you have anything you want to say to that?
It was a very wonderful award. A lot of my friends were there from the old Cascade Locks era. We had just a wonderful time.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And our dear Miss Jenny Wino is a young 91.
Almost 92.
That's right. That's right. And she's like Timex. She just keeps on ticking. Thane.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So I have 43 happy and 40 of those are going to be for my grandpa because that was the number of years he had perfect attendance in our Rotary Club. We were able to finally have a public memorial service for he and my grandma last week. He set the bar pretty high. I think I've already missed more meetings in a couple years than he had in 40, but really appreciate all the Rotarians that came out, especially Tom Knauer, whose dad went to high school with my grandpa, and Jack Herrig, who probably suffered through a couple meetings with my grandpa. So that's the first 40. Then last 3, they're each $1. $1 for Doug Cole, who he is the club and the world's newest Paul Harris Fellow. So Doug, congratulations and thank you for supporting the Rotary International Foundation. I have $1 for the Kent Rotary Club. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. So their 100th anniversary gala is going to be in October, and it's going to be on Saturday, October 23rd. I'm going to go over and show some love to the Kent Club since they're such big sponsors and supporters of both the Chili Open and our club. And then lastly, $1 for our good friend Pat O'Neill. He is the chair of the Stan Hewitt Gala that's coming up on August the 20th, and they're having like a Roaring 20s theme. So he and his wife are hosting, and a couple of us Rotarians are going to go and support Pat. So that is it for today. A lot to be happy for.
Thank you, Thane. Doug, Mr. Doug.
I suppose since Carol and I were at the Metro Parks event honoring Jenny, I should probably match Jerry's contribution with $30 happy myself, particularly since it's about the number of years that Jenny roped me into doing things down at Mustle, everything from scraping paint to putting tenants into the house. So $30 for Jenny for happy dollars.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'm just trying to take a look here to see if I'm missing anybody. Okay. Lastly, I have one other announcement. Then I want to see if anybody else has any announcements that they need to make. But I want to do what I would classify almost like a all in the family little segment here and recognize some of our dear Rotary family and birthdays. And so Tamara actually had a birthday on Saturday and she turned 29 again. So that coupled with
Yeah,
today,
can you guys tell? It's actually 25.
25.
So.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
I'm kidding. 32.
So today is Mela Kastner's birthday. So if you have the opportunity to reach out, let her know a hearty happy birthday. Tomorrow is Ed Wagner's birthday, as well as George Romanowski's. And then our dear Laura Smiley, who I saw she's on here, she has a birthday on Thursday, and followed by Hilary de Saussure on Friday. And then on next Sunday, we have Katerina Pappas and Nicholas George with birthdays. So happy birthday to all of you, and may your days be blessed. So with that, any other announcements that anyone has to make or would like to make? Okay. Well, it is my privilege to introduce today's speaker. And we're honored to have Elaine Tso from the Asian Services in Action. And Elaine has served in her role, and she's responsible for leading the largest health and social services agency in the state of Ohio, which is focused on addressing the needs of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, immigrants and refugees. Asia's mission is to empower and to advocate for AAPIs so they have access to quality, culturally and linguistically appropriate information, health, and social services. She supervises a leadership team responsible for direct health and social services, policy advocacy, capacity building, civic engagement, and special projects. She also has the responsibility for ensuring compliance of the requirements of Asia's International Community Health Center, a federally qualified health center. And so we're honored to have you with us today, Elaine. And we're also honored to be privileged here in Akron to have so many immigrants that have come to us from Asia. And now it's our privilege to be able to integrate in the blessing of what, 25,000, I would guess we're close to Asians into Greater Akron. So please come and share with us.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen so that I can present to all of you. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully you can see my screen. So I'm extremely honored to present to all of you today about Asian Services in Action. It's been an organization that I've been part of since 2007. So 14 years, probably longer than any other relationship I've had. So Asia was founded in 1995 by a group of Asian women who wanted to help Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, abbreviated AAPIs, immigrants and refugees that they saw struggling to integrate in the United States. At the time that Asia was founded, most of the immigrants and refugees were coming from Asian countries, countries like Vietnam, China, and other places like that. But today, Asia also serves immigrants and refugees from Middle Eastern countries as well as Africa. Furthermore, Asia welcomes all communities. Asia was started as a social services organization that performed health screenings and community health promotion. And then in 2013, Asia opened its first International Community Health Center site in Cleveland. This is a quick picture of some of Asia's board members. This was the last time that we were able to gather collectively in person for our annual gala in 2019. This is Asia's leadership team. We have 85 total staff across 2 locations. Akron is our headquarters, but we also have a satellite office in Cleveland. Everyone at the organization wears multiple hats, as you would expect for a nonprofit organization. Now I'm going to share a quick overview of Asia's 9+ programs. This is a picture outside of our Akron site, outside of our International Community Health Center. So Asia's longest running program is its International Community Empowerment Project, which was started as one of the first programs covering the children, youth, and families that we serve. At the time, the founders saw a need for newly arrived children to be helped with after-school homework help, as well as just adjusting to life in the United States. Similarly, in Cleveland, there is the Community Adult Mentoring Program, which also provides after-school tutoring and homework assistance. Probably the largest department at Asian Services in Action is our Sustainability Services Department, which addresses all of the different social determinants of health. That includes everything from housing to emergency food assistance, workforce development, benefits access, transportation services, as well as tax filing assistance. As an organization serving the limited English proficient community, you would probably expect that Asia would have an interpretation and translation services department, and we do. What may surprise you is the number of languages that we are able to provide. So within the House of Asia, like in-house, we're able to provide 28 different languages and dialects just among our staff, myself included. But then on top of the 28 different languages in-house, we also have access to an additional 27 freelance interpreters, so that covers 55 different languages and dialects, some of which are very, very unique languages and rare languages. On top of that, we also provide training so that interpreters are able to be certified in their field, because even though I speak other languages, I certainly would not, I think, be qualified as an interpreter, because it requires very special skills beyond just being able to speak another language. You have to follow various protocols as well as ethical boundaries. Next is we have a domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking department. This department provides basic needs assistance, legal services, as well as counseling for survivors. This is a very particularly important department because of the various cultural barriers that exist in this international community, where sometimes family members don't recognize the need for safety in situations of domestic violence, and sometimes almost encourage their family members to stay in an unsafe space because of concerns about shaming their family or other rules as part of their culture. The other thing that I think is important to highlight about this program is that, when people think about human trafficking, sometimes they, the first thing that comes to mind is sex trafficking or something like that. But actually, in Ohio, the highest number of human trafficking incidents actually involve labor trafficking. These are situations where individuals are really kind of treated like slaves in one form or another, living in kind of horrible conditions and having their immigration papers or documents held from them in order to keep them in a kind of inhuman environment, either living in horrible conditions, working horrible hours, and basically a slave to the individual that the perpetrator that has their paperwork held hostage. So, and sometimes community members don't even realize that they are being trafficked. They just think that, oh, well, this is what they can expect out of being able to work. And a lot of times our staff is there to educate them that this is not acceptable behavior and to get them out of those unlivable situations. And closely related is our legal services department, which, as you would expect, we offer immigration legal services, everything from helping people obtain their green cards to getting naturalized and obtaining citizenship. But we also provide family law services akin to the domestic scenarios that I referenced in the previous slide. And more important recently is the Marcy's Law representation for victims of crime. In this particular setting and in this particular climate, we're currently dealing with, as you probably have heard in the news, a significant uptick in anti-Asian violence and hate crimes happening across the country. And it might surprise you perhaps that our Victims of Crime department has long existed at Asian Services in Action in order to represent those individuals who might be hesitant to come forward or be unable to file a police report or something like that. So we have advocates that are bilingual who accompany victims of crime, and that includes everyone who may be a victim of theft, assault, things of that nature. There are, I guess, people who have ill intentions who might attack someone who is limited English proficient on the premise that they believe, like, well, who would they tell anyway if they were attacked? No one would listen to them because they don't speak English or something along those lines. And fortunately, we have bilingual advocates who can accompany victims to file police reports, as well as if it escalates to court. We have attorneys who are also bilingual who are able to represent the victims in court and make sure that they are aware of their rights as a victim through the Marcy's Law representation. On a brighter note, I am happy to talk about Asia's Healthy Asian Pacific Islander Fresh Farmers Market. It's familiarly known as our Happy Fresh Farmers Market. And it is a happy place, quite honestly. Every summer from July through September, Asia hosts a farmer's market over by Patterson Park in the North Hill neighborhood of Akron. And, the Asian community is growing anyway. And I think it's a beautiful and poetic image of people who come to this country from other countries, and they bring their seeds. They bring seeds from their home country to be replanted here in the United States. And here in Akron, we have a partnership with Akron Cooperative Farms to rent out plots of land for those immigrants and refugees who might not have a backyard. When they're newly arrived in this country, many of them live in apartments or, you know, other rental spaces where they might not have a backyard. And this is an opportunity for them to grow the produce that they want to grow anyway, and that they naturally wish to have, because it's not like they can get some of the ethnically specific produce at Giant Eagle or something like that. So they enjoy farming, they enjoy growing their culturally specific produce. And then on top of it, it's kind of a social enterprise where they grow food to solve their, you know, kind of like food desert or food insecurity challenges. And then on top of that, whatever they're not consuming with their own family, they can sell at our farmers market and have an additional income stream. So it's a beautiful, you know, social enterprise. And then importantly, you know, Asia has an international community health center. You know, it first opened in 2013, as I said, and now we've expanded to have 2 sites, one in Cleveland, one in Akron. The Akron location is much larger, and you know, it really allows us to provide culturally and linguistically sensitive care for our community members. Most of them have never had a preventive care experience. You know, in their countries of origin, they typically would not go to the doctor unless they were very, very sick. And in most of those situations, you know, it was beyond the point of being helped. And so it's really, really important for public health, for community health, that that we are teaching the newly arrived community about preventive health. And that includes vaccination, right? So, you know, our International Community Health Center has definitely been part of the COVID response. We have been vaccinating, you know, since the beginning of 2021, we've been vaccinating hundreds of community members every week. And we've also had pop-up events in addition to our regular weekly clinics to vaccinate individuals. And more recently, you know, just like across the country, and you know, we're not unique in this aspect, because of the wide availability of the COVID vaccine. We've seen probably fewer individuals coming in on a regular basis for our weekly vaccines, but with the Delta variant being so much more contagious, and with the Delta variant being so much more not only contagious, but you know, breaking through despite people being vaccinated, there are lots more interest in individuals getting vaccinated. And we hope that this will encourage the rest of anyone who is not currently vaccinated to get vaccinated, so that then, you know, even if COVID is still out there, that whatever illness that they may contract, the symptoms will at least be much more mild compared to if they were not vaccinated at all. Another important aspect of the work that we do intersects with civic engagement. You know, it's you know, neither a plug nor anything like that, but just a comment of fact that today is a primary election is happening today. It's the last day to vote. You know, Asia is a nonpartisan organization. You know, we don't advocate for either party, but we do encourage the newly arrived community to participate in elections and to be civically engaged, because you know, many community members who came from other countries, they had absolutely no voice in their country, and or they had any rights stripped from them, either because they belonged to some specific community or they lived in a kind of dictatorship. But here in the United States, we encourage all new arrivals to, you know, once eligible, once they have obtained citizenship, to be engaged, to vote, to exercise their rights. And if they are not eligible to vote, we still encourage community members to voice their concerns and meet with public officials wherever possible, so that public officials who make those decisions are aware of what their concerns are. So, we regularly, before COVID, we regularly made trips to Columbus to speak to our elected officials. And then in the most recent 2020 census, we made sure that every community member was counted. Next is the Apex Fund for Economic Development, also known as the Apex Fund. This is one of our newer programs at ASIA, and it provides for small businesses or emerging businesses to obtain a microloan of up to $25,000 to launch a business. And then even besides the loan, the community member who wishes to launch a business, we also provide small business technical assistance. I don't know if it would surprise anyone on this meeting that people born in other countries are much more likely to be entrepreneurial compared to American-born individuals. And if you've ever, I guess, even walked down Main Street in Akron, you will see a multicolored, multicultural array of small businesses that have cropped up over the years in that community. And I recently learned that there were 22 ethnic grocery stores in North Hill, and it struck me as, can you imagine if there were 20 in North Hill's, a relatively small geography, right, to have 22 different grocery stores. And it struck me that, if we had 22 giant eagles or 22, name your grocery store, all located in a small geography, that, I don't know how successful or sustainable that would be. But in the ethnic community, people go to different grocery stores to purchase different products, and it's all very, very sustainable and very possible for these community members to have such a wide variety of ethnic grocery stores in that community. And we are supporting their ongoing business. And then, last but not least is the Aging Adults program that we have, which is better known as Lucky Seniors. In the Asian community, once you've reached a certain age, you're considered very lucky or very fortunate. And as you probably know, in the Asian culture, the more advanced age you are, the much more revered and respected and honored you are. And so for that, we refer to these community members as Lucky Seniors. So pre-pandemic, the Lucky Seniors would gather for a congregate meal program on an every other week basis. These community members not only would kind of avoid the isolation that a lot of older adults experience, having either adult grown children that go to work all day, or just simply not having the same amount of activity as someone in the prime of their adulthood. And so this program really addressed that social isolation, but also provides a civics lesson in language. As you may or may not know, the Naturalization Exam to become a citizen, it's very rigorous, and it involves, knowing lots of facts about the U.S. Constitution, as well as history and those types of things. I mean, I'm an attorney, and I would have to study significantly to pass that U.S. naturalization citizenship test. And so as part of this Lucky Seniors program, there's a civics lesson involved in that process. Now, post-pandemic, we've had to, make a dramatic shift. All of the previous in-person programming was suspended because the older population is more vulnerable to the coronavirus. And so we shifted all of our basic needs and benefits access, it needed to increase because the elderly community was staying at home, and any like food or supplies and things like that needed to be either delivered to them or otherwise kind of remote instead of in person. We made calls to check in on our lucky seniors to make sure that they were okay and make sure that if they needed anything, we were there to provide it. We also increased use of some other communication platforms. The Chinese community uses something called Wechat. And so if there was a community member that had a cell phone and was savvy enough to use that app, they communicated through that channel. Additionally, there are some community members who, like I said, are tech savvy enough to use the internet. And if there were individuals like that, we were teaching them how to use Zoom. And it was actually really kind of adorable. The lucky seniors, when they gathered in person in the past, they would always share pictures, like physical pictures of their grandchildren or something like that. And now that they went remote, no longer able to meet in person, they were learning how to share pictures over Zoom. And it was really kind of adorable to, as you've seen on this call, I honestly haven't been to a meeting where someone hasn't said you're on mute. And in this setting, when someone's on mute, there was really no way to let them know that they were on mute other than pointing to your ear that you can't hear, and then having to explain to them, in spite of language challenges or language barriers, how to click the button in the lower left-hand corner to unmute themselves. So it was adorable and interesting as well. We also made sure that all the lucky seniors were aware of any testing availability as well as vaccine availability. We were testing at our International Community Health Center and also vaccinating, as you can see here. In fact, the picture of this lucky senior being vaccinated, she's actually the founder, or one of the founders of Asian Services in Action, and she was the first recipient of the vaccine. She got in line to make sure she got vaccinated. So in summary, Asia is creating an ecosystem to make sure that all community needs are met. We put the community at the center of all of our services and design our programming around their needs. Everything from our sustainability support services to our International Community Health Center or our Apex Fund for Economic Opportunities. And that's Asia's impact. We're ensuring that the community receives culturally and linguistically centered services, that we have trusted bilingual community members on staff, that we are responding to the community's needs. We're empowering new arrivals and always advocating for change where needed. So I will, I guess, open up for questions if there are any. And I don't know if you want me to stop sharing. You can.
Hi, Elaine. This is David Hall. Thank you very much. I'll help moderate some questions. We are very close to our cutoff time, or if you're able to, we generally have people stay on for about 10 to 15 minutes after our meeting, and they can continue to ask questions at that time, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and David, I'd like to make a recommendation because we are at the end here. I would like to officially close the meeting and then segue into those who want to stay.
Yes.
To have them have the opportunity. So if you allow me, I want to say thank you to everyone attending today. Thank you, Elaine. I mean, when you talk about Asian services in action, my goodness, it's awesome to see how holistic you are in reaching and touching the community. And I know there'll be a number of questions. So right now, I would officially like to call this meeting to an end. And may each of you have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you can stay on, if you have some questions, we welcome you to visit with Elaine. So we are officially done today. And if you want to stay on, we welcome you.
Very good. Well, Elaine, again, thanks for staying on for a little bit. We do have one question coming in the chat here. Is Happy Vegetable Shop open to the public?
Absolutely, it is. We are open every Wednesday during the summer from July through September. We're located at 381 Ontario Street in Akron. It's right across from Patterson Park in North Hill.
Okay.
So, so absolutely, everyone is welcome.
That's
and then you
great.
can enjoy some unique and culturally specific produce.
That was my next question was, is how varied is the produce compared to what we find typically in our American grocery stores?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many vegetables and so many unique items that you would not find in your typical grocery store here in the United States.
Do they offer, this is just, I frequent side of the road farm down in the valley called Zale's, and I found a very large onion they call a creamer that they give even instructions on how to cook. So do they offer any type of recipes along with their vegetable sales?
I have encouraged that, Asia. So Asia's Happy Fresh Farm used to be at I think it's How Farms. It like long time ago, like probably years ago, and they used to have cooking demonstrations. And I told Asia, when they moved from that location to the new location, that they should keep that tradition going because
right.
Really everything. I mean, in giving out samples, because then people would enjoy like whether it's Japanese eggplant or pumpkin leaf or some of the really flaming hot peppers that the community enjoys to eat, like just popping them. Teaching the broader community how to enjoy some of these things would, I think, be awesome. But I'm working on it.
All right. Well, we'll have to come down and ask ourselves. Maybe that'll get them to move.
Yes.
I'm not seeing other questions right now in the chat. Does anybody on still on the meeting have a question they just want to ask?
David, Elaine, you guys are a federally qualified health center, right? So can you explain for those that are remaining how that benefits you from a reimbursement standpoint so you can serve those individuals without insurance?
Yes, I apologize for not going into detail, but I was already like kind of chasing the clock. So I was trying to hurry through that. But so as a federally qualified health center, that means that we are able to provide healthcare services to anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. So whether they are insured, uninsured, underinsured, we are able to subsidize the cost of their care through the federally qualified support. And we never turn anyone away if they don't have insurance or can't pay. We have a sliding fee scale. If someone doesn't have insurance or doesn't have ability to pay, so they can pay as little as nothing if they can demonstrate that need.
And I can assure you that the work that they have to do to be a federally qualified health center is tremendous, because I know when Community Support Services got our federally qualified health center status, it's very rigorous. So the fact that they are a federally qualified health center ensures that there's quality services that are being provided, and anyone can take advantage of it, which is really great.
Yes, we definitely go through the rigor of the federal examination, to make sure that we are providing the highest quality of care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elaine, I have a couple of questions. My first one is that, am I correct in saying that we're somewhere approaching 25,000 Asian immigrants in Akron? Is that a fair assessment? Is it somewhere around that number?
Yeah, it's somewhere around that number. And you know, an interesting fact is that Akron is a top 10 welcoming city. So, you know, since they've been doing these calculations or keeping the data, Akron and Columbus are the largest resettlement cities in the state of Ohio. So it's a wonderful thing and something that Akron should be very proud of, that it's a top 10 welcoming city.
So my two questions, and that I should have said three with that one, but how are we doing as it pertains to our city with integration taking place adequately with Akron and the Asian community? How are we doing from your perspective?
I mean, that's a difficult question, I guess, to answer from just one person, but it is, you know, as you couched it, you know, my perspective. My perspective is that, you know, I think that from various levels, there can be some additional investment in the newly arrived community, and that goes everywhere from the school system to the business intersection, to I guess the opportunity for employment, and I'll address each of those intersections in order. So in the school setting, you know, Asia is present at North and Jennings, and you know, some of the you know, probably like larger schools in the Akron Public Schools. And yet some of the smaller schools within the Akron Public School system, it seems, at least you know, at least to the newly arrived community, that there are more options for the students. I think that one thing that Akron Public Schools is doing great is that I think it's the honor college or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But that's one thing that I would like to uplift about what Akron Public Schools is doing. They have the I can't remember the name of it, but it's an opportunity for students to I guess learn about specific careers and have the opportunity to you know, shadow someone. But that's not available at all of the Akron Public Schools. And you know, you have to live, I think, in a specific geography to be able to access that programming. I wish that programming was more expansive, and I'll tell you why. It's because the newly arrived community, they don't typically have the same social network that someone that has been living in this country forever might have. You know, it's not like you could ask like your mom or dad's friend, you know, to introduce you to a wealth planner or something like that. You might not know somebody. You might not know somebody in that space. Or you might not know someone who's a photographer if you're an aspiring photographer. So I really think that there's room for further investment in terms of having resources available to a community member that might not have the same social network. And then the second one was the business intersection. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs, they become entrepreneurs not because they are necessarily trying to be in business for themselves, but even in my own family, you know, the generation before me, actually maybe two generations before me, like my grandparents' generation, they had businesses, and they had businesses not because they necessarily wanted to be a business person, but because they weren't being hired by other companies, and so they kind of had to make a business for themselves. But at the same time, there are also businesses that crop up because of need. Like there isn't, you know, I have a family member who launched a like a soybean factory business because there wasn't a soybean product company that existed in the era when community members wanted that product. And so they launched their soybean factory, and I worked in it when I was 12. But you know, I guess there's two things. You know, there's the employment aspect of it. You know, if they were being hired by existing businesses, then they wouldn't have to go down that track. But then the flip side of that is they're responding to a demand for a product or a service that doesn't currently exist, but there's a large community demand for it. And so I think that there can be like a recognition from either like, SBA or something along those lines that we're filling, that non-native community members are filling that need and just kind of support it with either technical assistance or something along those lines.
Lastly, you mentioned micro lending, and if I heard you correctly, you said up to $25,000, correct?
Yes.
So then how deep does that well go? And what legitimate opportunity are there for the Asian community in North Hill?
Well, I mean, it's a revolving fund. It's a revolving fund, right? So as community members repay their loans, then we can immediately redeploy those funds for another loan. So it's really not necessarily a question of how deep the well is, because the well is continuously being replenished by that revolving supply of funds. And in Akron anyway, $25,000 goes a lot further than $25,000 might go in California or New York. And so even if we had I don't know, let's say we had $150,000. If we had $150,000 of a pool to lend out, that's potentially 6, 8, however many, six. Let's say it's like 6 businesses that could be that could receive a microloan up to $25,000. That's 6 businesses that could be launched, and as they repay the loan, they're also establishing credit, which doesn't necessarily exist in the country that they came from. They're building their credit history, their credit borrowing ability, so that then they might borrow even more from a traditional lender. We're kind of acting as that bridge to larger commercial loans for a business as they continue to grow.
So
as a former banker, I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, the pool is 25,000.
Yeah, so as a former banker, Elaine, I appreciate, I mean, the struggle with banking is always, we're looking to help companies grow based off of a history and experience. So you helping them get that start is fantastic. But I guess the question would be, what's happening to bridge the connection between, the startup companies and once they have a history to get them into a traditional bank? Because as a banker, my wife was, Italian immigrant family from North Hill, so I'm very familiar with the area and have seen what they've done over the years. But how do you get into, I guess, taking them from the startup, and how do you get them connected to the banks and bridge the communication gap, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I love sharing. I love sharing the story of she was from Burma, which you may have heard in the news is kind of experiencing some political strife at the moment. But there was this woman. Her and her husband were from Burma. They came to the United States by way of a Thailand refugee camp. They came to this country in 2008, I believe, and then in 2017. After kind of struggling in the food service industry, she just kind of had it, and said, I'm tired of being exploited by an employer that doesn't pay me enough. I'm constantly chasing a paycheck. And then by chance, she met one of Asia's technical assistance providers for the small business program. And she said, do we speak the same language? Can you help me? And by chance, they did speak the same language, Burmese. And Asia was able to arrange for her to get a $25,000 loan. And then she launched a small storefront restaurant. And that restaurant was so wildly successful that after 2 years, so that was in 2017, after 2 years in 2019, she had not only repaid the loan plus interest and all of that, but her business had become so wildly successful that she was able to actually purchase the former Parasons in North Hill. So over there on Main Street, on that corner right there. So she purchased the Parasons, but then, you know, remember 2019, keep track of the calendar, then COVID hit. And she had, you know, she had all these plans, you know, but you know, silver lining, always silver linings. She's going to be opening reopening for business in a couple of weeks. And you know, she was very successful in navigating the pandemic with like takeout and just kind of managing to keep afloat. But over that period of now, I guess like almost 4 year period, she's been receiving like financial literacy classes. She's been I guess improving her English continuously. You know, we offer, that's something that I forgot to mention in the presentation, is that Asia offers English as a second language classes, as well as English for speakers of other languages, ESL and ESOL classes that also you know, teach these additional components through the technical assistance that we're providing. That's everything from like Safe Serve to you know, various regulations, compliance, things like that we're educating the new community member on, and connecting them as well to other lenders. So during the pandemic, a lot of the small businesses that had been established prior to the pandemic, they were, I guess, struggling to have relationships with lenders for purposes of the payroll protection program or emergency, what is it, EIDL, emergency something disaster loans, or economic injury, sorry, economic injury disaster loans. And because of our relationships with different lenders, we were able to make those connections for those community members. And so that's a really great question. I mean, like anything else, like when you're new and you don't have a network, and really this is just a kind of an endorsement for networking. It's super important to have a social network, have a professional network, and obviously Rotarians know that very well. But for the community member, we're educating them about the benefit and value of those networks. For now, we're providing that connection, but we're teaching them that they need to establish those networks as well.
Very good, thank you.
Anybody else with a question?
Yeah.
Connor, do you have one, or Cheryl or Julie?
No, I just appreciate the presentation. Very, very informative, and something I was completely unaware existed in our community. And Dave, great question that you had there too. So I've just been enjoying listening and learning more. So thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely fabulous.